So the title that I chose today, I called it Dancing with Time, Finding Wise Hope. And the reason why I ended up here, and many of you who were there in the last sermon probably felt it, I personally have been yo-yoing between hope and despair like 200 times a day. Since the pandemic, since George Floyd, and especially since January. So I really started to think about what is hope? Where does hope live in this time? And that's where I kind of started to lean into this idea of wise hope and then how time plays into it. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to give you some overview of where my mind has been traveling. But I want to start with one of my favorite people, Mary Oliver. This is one of her poems from this book called A Thousand Mornings. And this poem is called Hurricane. I didn't believe like anything, it didn't behave like anything you had ever imagined. The wind tore the trees. The rain fell for days, slant and hard. The back of the hand to everything. I watched the trees bow and their leaves fall and crawl back into the earth. As though that was that. It was one hurricane I lived through. The other one was of a different sort and lasted longer. Then I felt my own leaves giving up and falling. The back of the hand to everything. But listen now to what happened to the actual trees. Toward the end of that summer, they pushed new leaves from their stubbed limbs. It was the wrong season, yes, but they couldn't stop. They looked like telephone poles and didn't care. And after the leaves came blossoms. For some things, there are no wrong seasons, which is what I dream of for me. That was the master poet, Mary Oliver. And this dream that she's talking about, that is what I think I call wise hope. The hope that no matter what, leaves and flowers will come, even though the trees may not look like trees, but look like telephone poles. So the word wise hope is actually a phrase coined by anthropologist and Zen Roshi, Joan Halifax. And I think it is leaning into what is the definition of hope at this moment and why it needs to be wise in the sense of being clear-eyed and grounded in reality. As I was doing some research around this, I came across this essay. And the author really had a very interesting point, which somehow I had never thought about until I read it. And when I read it, I was like, duh, yeah. But it was really cool. What he said was that we humans generally think in 5-generation terms. So it's me at the center, 2 generations back, grandparents, and 2 generations forward, grandchildren. That's our period of imagining ourselves in the world. And this is really the place which I would call the domain of Chronos, the god of tick-tock clock time. The one that says things just have to go one way. It's either this or that. If you've lost this minute, you're never going to get it back again. All of that. And it feels like a vice to me. It feels like it's crushing us with its unidirectional inevitability. This tick-tock time. So I started to feel as to what would time look like if we stepped out of this 5-generation block. So on one side, we have something that I think spiritual communities are very familiar with, interact with. It's the idea that every mystical tradition, every meditative tradition speaks about, which is this moment, right now, this breath. And how once we arrive in this moment, there is a peace, there is a comfort, there's a grounding. Rumi called it the clear bead at the center that changes everything. And in many ways, each of the spiritual traditions from the world over really teach us how to access this clear bead again and again. That's a domain that we know well. We may not practice it, but we know it. But I wanted to lean onto the other side of time, which scientists and philosophers are now calling deep time. Deep time is time in cosmological and geological time scale. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, maybe even millions and billions, starting from Big Bang. What happens when we expand our sense of time that much? I'll read you some stuff, but before that, I'll tell you that the image that came to me, which has been actually a lot of like a source of comfort, is that when I think of deep time, it feels more like a river, and the river is flowing, and I might be caught in an eddy. I might be a piece of straw caught in an eddy going round and round and round, but the river flows. And I think it's really, for me, very comforting to know that I can step out of that eddy and watch the river flow. So I want to read to you, rather than explain what is deep time, I want to read to you a little piece from this book called Underland, A Deep Time Journey by Robert McFarlane. Listen to this, it's beautiful. Deep in the bedrock of Olkiluoto Island in southwest Finland, a tomb is under construction. The tomb is intended to outlast not only the people who designed it, but also the species that designed it. Note that. It's meant to outlast not just us, our generation, next generation, but even our species. It is intended to maintain its integrity without future maintenance for 100,000 years, able to endure a future ice age. 100,000 years ago, 3 major river systems flowed across the Sahara, just to give you a context. 100,000 years ago, anatomically modern humans were beginning their journey out of Africa. So that's the time scale we're talking about. In comparison, the oldest pyramid is around 4,600 years old, and the oldest surviving church building is fewer than 2,000 years old. This Finnish tomb has some of the most secure containment protocols ever devised. More secure than the crypts of the pharaohs, more secure than any supermax prison. It is hoped that what is placed within this tomb will never leave it by any means other than geological. The tomb is an experiment in post-human architecture, and its name is Onkalo, which in Finnish means cave or hiding place. What is hidden in Onkalo is high-level nuclear waste, perhaps the darkest matter we have ever made. For as long as we have been producing nuclear waste, we have been failing to decide how to dispose of it. We know how to make electricity from uranium, and we know how to make death from it. We still do not know how to best dispose of it when its work for us is done. 250,000 tons of high-level nuclear waste in need of final storage is presently thought to exist globally. And around 12,000 tons are being added to that figure annually. Just let that sink in. That is our legacy, our toxic legacy for the generations and the species to come. And one of the conversations later in the book, he writes about, like one of the conversations that the scientists who are building this are having is how do you communicate to somebody 100,000 years from now who might be a completely different species, how do you communicate to them that this is not something that they should open up out of curiosity, that this is dangerous? How do you do that? That is the task of this generation. How to take responsibility for the toxicity we have created. And maybe one way to start thinking about it is to think that we really don't have control. We don't know how things are going to go. And a lot of our activism currently, wonderful as it is, it's still driven by this myth of unfettered free will. We can make the world how we want it. And of course, manifest destiny, that's behind a lot of this thing. Another writer that I love, Bayo Akomolafe, in one of his podcasts, speaks about this time, and he says, we are the frothing edge of an explosion that is still happening. Frothing edge of an explosion that is still happening. He's talking about Big Bang. That we rudely call reality, or space-time, or whatever you want to call it, or God. This panentheistic procession of orgasmic possibilities that is branching out diffractively in a way that we'll never be able to control. What happens if we step out of that myth that we can control? So this is where the wise hope idea comes in. This is from Joan Halifax in the Buddhist journal, Lion's Roar. Wise hope is not seeing things unrealistically, but rather seeing things as they are, including the truth of suffering, both its existence and our capacity to transform it. It's when we realize we don't know what will happen that this kind of hope comes alive. In that spaciousness of uncertainty is the very space we need to act. She says, I often say that there should be just 2 words over the door of our temple in Santa Fe: show up. Let's face it, we don't need hope or faith if we know what's happening, what will happen, if we have the guarantee. Faith and hope only come in when we do not know, and we still need to act. So the question is, how do I show up? What actions do I take? Rebecca Solnit, another wonderful writer, she has a book called Hope in the Dark, Untold Histories, Wild Possibilities. And she quotes another author in that book who says, fraudulent hope is one of the greatest malefactors, even innervators of the human race. Concretely genuine hope is its most dedicated benefactor. And this is from her chapter titled False Hope and Easy Despair. And I think we often get caught in that false hope and easy despair. That's my 200 times yo-yoing a day. It's that. So we're being asked to do something paradoxical, to surrender, to accept that we do not have any control, and yet to show up where and when we're called. And remember that this is something that's not new. Bhagavad Gita speaks about this. Arjun talks to Krishna and says, Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You only have control on your actions, not on the fruits of those actions. So this is an ancient teaching. And maybe this is really a time for us to take that to heart. So I want to speak just very briefly about what is my image? What is my wise hope or wild hope? The time when hope sparkles in me, the times when hope sparkles in me most is when I hear of somebody else doing something that I like, something that makes me into a we. I feel hope then And I have this image of like standing on a mountaintop late at night, it's all dark, and I see these little campfires. These are the campfires of community. They're small right now, but there are many. And my hope, my imagined future is where these little campfires start to be connected by roads and paths. And there'll be people traveling between them, sharing songs, sharing stories, sharing techniques of resistance, of rebuilding, restorative justice. That's my image. That's what wants me to move forward. And from the tradition I come from, this is what we call Indra's net. This image of the universe as an interconnected web studded with jewels, each jewel reflecting every other jewel. That's my image. So I'll leave you with a last poem, and I'm in poems this time. And this is by Antonio Machado. He was a Spanish poet, and he was one of the leading figures of what is called the Generation of 98, which was a group of writers that basically reflected on the decline of Spain at the end of the 19th century. And I think this is another way that one can lean into wise hope. This poem is called Last Night as I Was Sleeping. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that a spring was breaking out in my heart. I said, along what secret aqueduct, O water, are you coming to me? Water of a new life that I have never drunk. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that I had a beehive here inside my heart. And the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my old failures. I read this part once more. There was a beehive here inside my heart, and the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my old failures. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt marvelous error, that a fiery sun was giving light inside my heart. It was fiery because I felt warm as from a heart, and sun because it gave light and brought tears to my eyes. Last night as I slept, I dreamt, marvelous error, that it was God I had here inside my heart. How will our world look if the God inside my heart can see and commune with the God inside your heart? That is my dream. That is my wise hope. And until we are there, I want to keep on showing up, even though I will go through despair. I do not doubt that I want to keep showing up and keep co-creating this Indra's net, this hundreds and thousands and millions of campfires, all interconnected. Thank you. I will leave you with a final blessing from John O'Donoghue, the Irish poet philosopher, from his book To Bless the Space Between Us, a book of blessing. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the current of thought, and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mine